when you look back, when the week's over and you've been through it, you have to have the ability to forget what has happened the week before. And it's hard to do.
Welcome into this week's edition of Midweek Adjustments. It is very clear. Steve Spurrier choosing to focus on the future and leave the past exactly where it is. Michael Haney from 107.5 The Game. The message was pretty obvious from Coach Spurrier at his weekly press conference. What they did in Missouri, the miracle in Missouri, is great, but let's leave it the way it is, and let's just go beat Mississippi State.
I think he's hoping the third time that he has to say this message that it will actually get through after the Arkansas game, 52-7 win, a 45-point victory on the road against the Razorbacks, and then they go the next week and lose to Tennessee, not able to follow it up. Last week he says something very similar. Well, we just have to be able to brush off that loss the way we were supposed to brush off the win. And now this week you get a historic and really chemistry-building type win against Missouri. But at the same time, it was one win, and you still have things that are left for you out there. So I think he's realizing that the first couple of times around it didn't really sink in.
He's guarding against another letdown, I guess.
Maybe this time they're able to get the job done and understand what the coach is trying to tell them.
Yeah, we probably could have run the same sound bites from the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they would have been probably a carbon copy of what he's been saying all along. Regardless, that win in Missouri puts them right back in the mix in the SEC East. They have a very real chance of going to Atlanta and representing the East if they take care of their own business and get a little help.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to beat Mississippi State, and you need to beat Florida. Other than that, without getting into all the tiebreakers, I can't tell you how many questions, that we answer on a daily basis on the station about, well, what happens if this and this? Simple solution for you.
Just win.
Georgia, South Carolina win. Georgia needs to lose another game, and Missouri goes ahead and drops another game. That way the Gamecocks on the tiebreaker over Missouri, straight up. So without trying to get into all the complicated scenarios, that's what you need if you're a Gamecock fan.
Anything beyond that is advanced calculus, and numbers aren't really
I got into sports, so I didn't have to deal with numbers too much. I don't like thinking too hard.
Put the nice stats in front of us and a nice graph. We're good with that. Let's talk Clemson now, too, a team that also needs to take care of its own business. Chances of them getting back in the ACC championship race probably pretty slim, because I don't think Florida State's going to lose again. But they're still facing some criticism because they just, as we all know, got completely wiped off the field against Florida State. Looked a little rough for a half against Maryland this past week, and dealing with a little bit of criticism, and that's causing Taj Boyd, Dabo Swinney to bristle a little bit.
Yeah, well, when expectations are as high as they are, when you have that spotlight that's put on you and then you don't respond to it, that's the natural reaction from everyone. I think we saw from South Carolina's perspective earlier this year when they weren't quite dominating everyone. There's all the questions about, well, can they really get the job done now? And, well, they're a 6-2 team. They're one game off the pace from Clemson, and obviously those two teams will play each other here in about a month's time. But for Clemson, it's 3 straight weeks now. At Boston College, they didn't play very well. You can chalk it up to looking ahead to Florida State, which they didn't really do them very good. And then post-Florida State, chalk it up to a hangover from that. Let's see how they respond to this week. Going on the road to Virginia, they've got some time off, and they get a chance to play a Georgia Tech team. Obviously, South Carolina on the horizon. They shouldn't have any major challenges again, but I think that's part of the criticism is there have been some teams that shouldn't be a major challenge to Clemson, yet they have been, and there's got to be a way to run the ball consistently. They did give McDowell 30 carries last week.
And he delivered.
He did. He played very, very well last week, and that's something that Clemson has lacked, the consistent run game throughout the season. If they can find that, find a little solidity on that offensive line up front to give Taj Boyd a little more time, that offense can run as smooth as it's supposed to be running under Chad Morris and Taj Boyd, then I think maybe people will back off a little bit as they get down the stretch. But still a 7-1 team. But when you lose the way that they've lost and play the way that they've played against teams, there was really no excuse for them to play as poorly early on as they did against a Maryland team that was very banged up.
Their defense was just in tatters.
Over a full 2 deep of injuries for Maryland. 24 guys on an injury list that weren't able to play in that ball game, and they still hung around against Clemson. I think that's why people are kind of scratching their head wondering, hey, Tigers, what's up?
Yeah, well, bottom line is this. We all know the Virginia game is the biggest game of the year, according to Dabo Swinney. So we'll see what happens.
Maybe we'll believe him from now on. He keeps saying it. And,
just like with Coach Spurrier.
And after the way that they've played some of those games, maybe we'll take him at his word.
Both coaches can say it enough, and maybe everyone will get in lockstep with him, players and fans alike. All right, Michael Haney, thank you very much for another wonderful edition of Midweek Adjustments, folks. That is going to do it. We'll see you again next week.